Welcome to another session of Simply Ask Why on the Curiosity Channel. Your host is Ed Middich, and today's session is taken from the subject of society's pop culture. Let us begin.
Session 7. Why pop song duration changed over the decades. Hey everyone, welcome back. Have you ever wondered why popular songs, or pop songs, as we often call them, are typically the length they are? Since the early days of the Billboard Hot 100, song durations have evolved dramatically, from just over 2.5 minutes in the 1950s to more than 4 minutes by the 1990s. In this session, we'll take a time-traveling journey across 7.5 decades of music history to uncover what led to these changes in song length. 1950s tech. Distribution, economics. Pop songs in the 1950s were short primarily because of physical and broadcast limits. The dominant format was the 7-inch 45 RPM vinyl single, which could comfortably hold about 2.5 to 3 minutes per side without sacrificing sound quality. AM radio also favored short, punchy tracks that fit tightly scheduled programming. Songwriting followed Tin Pan Alley conventions. Verse, chorus, bridge, done, leaving little room for expansion. As a result, songs averaged under 3 minutes, not by choice, but by necessity. Audience high tolerance, simple expectations. Listeners in the 1950s actually had high patience, but narrow expectations. Music listening was often a shared, deliberate activity. Families gathered around radios or jukeboxes. Songs didn't need to sustain long attention because they weren't expected to develop much. Listeners valued familiarity, melody, and repetition. Short songs felt complete, not rushed. Patience existed, but interest was satisfied quickly. 1960s tech, distribution, economics. During the 1960s, the average song length increased by approximately 20 seconds as recording technology improved and artists began experimenting more with song structure. Multi-track recording allowed richer arrangements, and FM radio began to emerge, which was less rigid than AM. While singles still needed to be radio-friendly, artists like the Beatles and Bob Dylan pushed boundaries, occasionally exceeding 3 minutes. Still, commercial radio pressure kept most songs under that threshold, resulting in only modest growth in duration. Now we come to the audience growing curiosity and narrative attention. In the 1960s, listener patience increased in tandem with cultural curiosity. Audiences became more willing to follow lyrics, ideas, and emotional arcs, especially as popular music absorbed folk and protest influences. Songs didn't get much longer yet, but listeners were mentally prepared for them to. Attention shifted from danceability to meaning, even if radio still capped runtimes. 1970s tech, distribution, economics. The 1970s saw a major jump in song length driven by the rise of FM radio and album-oriented rock. FM stations were more tolerant of longer tracks and valued musical depth over tight programming clocks. LP albums became the dominant artistic format, and singles were often edited down versions of longer album tracks. Genres like rock, disco, and funk embraced extended intros, instrumental breaks, and longer grooves, pushing average lengths close to 4 minutes. Now, let's examine the characteristics of the audience characterized by deep attention and immersion. The 1970s marked a peak in listener immersion. People routinely listened to entire albums, often without interruption. Audiences were patient and interested in extended grooves, instrumental passages, and slow builds. Long songs didn't feel indulgent, they felt rewarding. Listener patience was high because music competed with fewer distractions, and attention was sustained by novelty and musicianship. 1980s tech, distribution, economics. Song lengths continued to grow in the 1980s due to advances in studio technology and production aesthetics. Digital recording, synthesizers, and drum machines encouraged layered, expansive arrangements. The rise of MTV also shifted focus towards cinematic song structures with longer builds and breakdowns. Radio remained important, but programmers tolerated longer tracks if they were hits. This decade reflects a balance between commercial radio needs and increasingly elaborate production. Listeners' selective patience. Listener patience in the 1980s became more selective. Audiences were willing to stick with longer songs, but only if production and energy stayed high. MTV shortened attention spans visually, but not necessarily musically. Listeners tolerated longer runtimes if songs delivered frequent stimulation, hooks, drops, visual cues. Interest needed to be maintained continuously, not just promised. 1990s tech, distribution, economics. The 1990s represent the peak of average song length. The CD format removed physical constraints, allowing songs of virtually any length without penalty. Radio playlists were less fragmented, and genres like alternative rock, hip-hop, and R&B favored longer narratives, extended verses, and musical bridges. With fewer incentives to shorten songs and no streaming metrics to optimize for, artists and labels allowed tracks to stretch beyond 4 minutes routinely. Listeners' narrative and emotional endurance. In the 1990s, listeners showed strong patience for storytelling and emotional building, especially in genres like alternative rock, hip-hop, country pop, and R&B. Long verses, extended intros, and multiple bridges were common and accepted. This was an era of low-content overload. Fewer releases, fewer platforms, fewer interruptions. Listeners gave songs time to unfold because they weren't constantly being pulled elsewhere. 2000s tech, distribution, economics. Although songs remained relatively long in the 2000s, subtle downward pressure began to appear. Radio was still dominant, but digital downloads and early online consumption introduced new listener behavior. Attention spans began to matter more, and labels increasingly favored concise, replayable singles. Still, without streaming algorithms rewarding shorter runtimes, the average length stayed close to 4 minutes, making this a transitional decade between physical media and streaming. Listeners fragmenting attention. Listener patience began to fragment in the 2000s. MP3 players and early digital libraries encouraged skipping, shuffling, and selective listening. While people still accepted longer songs, interest needed to be captured sooner. Long intros became riskier, and attention was no longer assumed. This decade reflects a psychological transition. Listeners wanted control more than immersion. 2010s, tech, distribution, economics. The 2010s brought a sharp reduction in song length, largely due to the rise of streaming platforms. On services like Spotify, a play counts after about 30 seconds, incentivizing songs with faster hooks and shorter runtimes to maximize replay counts. Social media and mobile listening further reduced tolerance for long intros or extended outros. As a result, many songs were designed to deliver impact quickly, pulling averages down into the mid-3-minute range. Listeners' impatience becomes structural. In the 2010s, listener impatience was no longer just a habit, it was built into platforms. With infinite content available instantly, listeners expected immediate payoff. If a song didn't hook within seconds, it was skipped. Average attention spans shrank, not because listeners cared less about music, but because opportunity costs skyrocketed. Songs shortened to match this new psychological environment. The 2020s, tech, distribution, economics. In the 2020s, song lengths stabilized slightly above their streaming era low point. Platforms like TikTok favored very short, viral-ready segments, but major artists began pushing back with more traditional structures once chart success was assured. While many songs remain short, top-tier hits sometimes run longer again, producing a mild rebound. The decade reflects a tension between algorithmic incentives and artistic expression, settling into a new equilibrium around 3.5 minutes. Listeners' micro-attention and pattern recognition. The 2020s are defined by micro-attention. Listeners often engage with music through short clips, loops, and background contexts rather than full listens. Patience still exists, but it's conditional. If interest is triggered emotionally or socially, virality, identity, nostalgia, listeners will commit to longer songs. Otherwise, attention evaporates quickly. This produces a split. Very short songs dominate, while longer songs succeed only when meaning or fandom carries them. Since this decade is only halfway over, I figured I'd fast forward to 2030 and show what I might look like beaming out tunes that are literally out of this world. I hope you found this session interesting, and I look forward to reading your comments in the section below the video. Or email your comments at my last name, which is mytych@gmail.com. Thank you for your support and participation. Until next time, stay well, stay blessed, and stay curious. So long.
Thank you for attending another session of Simply Ask Why on the Curiosity channel. Don't forget to leave a comment or suggest a why topic. Also, if you know anyone who would enjoy these, please send them the link included on the next slide. Thank you.